Hello everybody and welcome to the first episode of game review, I guess. There's this game you may have heard of called Mario Maker, and I really like that game, so I wanted to make really good levels for it. But I realized that to do that I would have to go back and look through every Mario game and see how those levels were designed so that I could design levels in the same way. So that's exactly what I was going to do. Of course, I've already spent hours in Mario Maker and just don't feel the need to play any more of the game. But I still wanted to dissect Mario games. But instead of dissecting the level design, I wanted to dissect the entire game. So this is episode 1, where I'm dissecting every single Mario game that I have access to. Of course, when I run out of Mario games, I'll probably start dissecting other games like Kirby or Sonic the Hedgehog. But we have not gotten that far, so let's just start at the beginning. Super Mario Bros. For the NES. Now, I have 10 categories in which I would like to critique. Graphics, controls, level design, level layout, variety, power-ups, enemies, boss fights, secrets, and of course, extra. So first things first, graphics. Now it might seem a little weird to critique the graphics of a nearly 40-year-old game, but I think it's still important. Because there are certain games where the graphics still hold up, like Sonic the Hedgehog. I think that game looks amazing. Mario is not one of them. But obviously I can't judge the game because it was on bad hardware. That's not the game's fault. But even though it was on bad hardware, it still looked pretty good. Mario looks fantastic. You know exactly what he is and what he looks like. He's got a big nose, a mustache, red hat, overalls. Makes sense. Then there's mushrooms that look like mushrooms, and the Goombas, which look like bad mushrooms. The Koopas, which look like turtles. Bowser looks like a big turtle. Everything just looks like exactly what you would expect them to look like. And it's surprising they were able to make things look like they were supposed to in such little space. Anyone that's ever tried pixel art knows that it's kind of difficult to get proportions right and make things look decent, so, well, good job to them. But graphics is only the first thing. What about the other 9? Next up, controls. I don't think this game controls well at all. The game is all about jumping. That is its defining feature. Everything requires you to jump. How do you kill enemies? You jump on them. How do you move? You jump. How do you end the level? You jump to the flag. It all lines up with jumping. And that's really annoying when the jump isn't that good. Now, it's not as bad as some games. The original Mario Bros. Has a terrible jump, and this game is way better than that, but being better than garbage isn't really a good thing. If you jump while stationary, you basically can't go forward. Like, technically you can a little bit, but it's just not that much. You have very little air control, and when you're having to jump off of very little platforms onto other little platforms, it's not the best thing in the world. The run feels nice though, I guess, but there's not a lot you can really control, so let's just move on. Next up is level design, and I think this game is also pretty bad at that. This game ranges from decent levels to awful levels. Take 2-3 for example. It's a bridge where cheap jump at you. It's not fun. Then you have basically the exact same level for 7-3. Like, it's the same idea. It's what? Oh, and then you have the maze levels like 4-4. Why? It's just, you choose the right path. If you get it wrong, you start over, you gotta do it again. That's not fun either. And there's multiple of them. 7-4 is another one, and I hated it so much, this is when I stopped playing the game. I replayed the game for this video and stopped at 7-4 because I didn't want to find the right path. It's just like, how did they think this was fun? But there aren't only bad levels, there are some decent ones. One that people still talk about today is 1-1. And 1-1 is pretty good. It teaches you about Goombas and question blocks. It has secrets. It's pretty decent. But it's still not that fun. The level starts pretty fine. There's a flat area, and then you have a question block and Goomba. It's all good. But then, it goes downhill. You have a pipe. You jump over the pipe. There's another pipe. You jump over the pipe. There's another pipe. You jump over the pipe. There's another pipe. Guess what? You jump over the pipe. Like, that's not level design. That's just repetition. In a very, very boring way. Now, I do like that you can go down the last pipe, but this isn't the secret section. We'll get to that later. So even when you have the best of the best levels, there's still not very good levels. I just don't think this level design holds up at all. But what about the level layouts, and what do I mean by this? Now, you might be confused because isn't the level layout the way the level is laid out, which is just the level design? Well, that's not what I mean. When I mean level layout, I don't mean how each level is laid out, but instead how the levels are laid together. For instance, in future Mario games, each world has a theme, and the levels inside that world go from easy to hard, and then you beat the level and move on to the next theme. In the original Mario Bros, that doesn't happen. There are no themes. You do have some repetition, like the last level in every world is a castle level, but that's about it. There isn't a water world or an underground world or a sky world. Even though those themes exist, they don't have their own world. I'm not the biggest fan of this, because no levels will follow a similar level. It goes one level to the next level to the next level, every single one having a different style. But on the other end of things, it means it's all very unorganized. Now, the levels are technically organized on difficulty. The later in the game, the harder the difficulty. And it is pretty fine. There aren't any major difficulty spikes, so I think they did a pretty good job with that. But I just wish each world and each level felt distinct. If I just showed you a screenshot from a level, you would have no idea what level it is, or even what world it's from. So I just wish it organized everything a little bit better. But speaking of different levels, there are arguably 8 different kinds. Ground, underground, sky, castle, night, water, night sky, and snow sky. There might be some that I missed, but these are all the ones that I counted. Now, a lot of them are just different textures. Night sky, day sky, and snow sky are just the same level, but different colors. But a lot of them are pretty unique. For instance, the underground levels have a ceiling where the ground levels do not. The sky levels have barely any ground, and the castle levels are the only ones that feature fireballs. So there is some distinction, which is really nice. But there's also the water level. The water levels change the entire control system. I don't know why so many games felt the need to add water levels, even though they're not good. Like I said before, Mario is about jumping. So trying to just take the jump away feels really bad. The water levels are not very fun. They do change up the level design, but, not in a good way. So there is a small variety in levels, different levels being designed differently, and I do like that. Although the biggest variety is not very good, the other varieties are pretty good. Of course, you have nothing major, but it's enough to stay interesting. Next thing I want to talk about is power-ups. There are only 3 power-ups in Super Mario Bros. The mushroom, the fire flower, and the star. The mushroom is one of the most ingenious power-ups in the world. That might sound like I'm over-exaggerating, but I mean that. It allows Mario to take an extra hit, which isn't anything new, but the way it shows you that is brilliant. Instead of doing something like having a health bar in the corner, where picking up a mushroom just refills it, instead, they changed Mario's height. This means 2 things. 1, it makes sense why Mario gains abilities. In The Legend of Zelda, when Link has full health, he can shoot a beam out of his sword. That doesn't make any sense. But Mario being able to break bricks when he's bigger makes perfect sense. It also means that you can just tell Mario's health at all times. With games like Mega Man, you're focusing on Mega Man himself while playing the game, but you have to glance up at the health bar whenever you want to know how much health you have. With Mario, it's at the same place. You can just look at Mario while playing, and look at Mario while reading the health. It's perfect. I just think it's the most ingenious thing in the world. Then you have the fire flower, which isn't as brilliant, but it's still neat. I especially like that the fireballs aren't shot straight, instead they hop along the ground. This means to shoot your target straight on, you have to jump, which just builds on top of the main mechanic of the game, which, like I said earlier, is jumping. And then there's the star. Now the star isn't as ingenious, it's just common sense. Power-ups like this have shown up throughout the years in lots of different notable games. For instance, Pac-Man. But I think that it does a couple things really smart. 1, it adds special music, which makes you more excited to go run into as many enemies as you possibly can as quick as you can. And 2, it changes Mario's color. Now, it doesn't just change its color with the fire flower, it flashes its color, making it even more exciting. Having the star just makes you super excited to go kill as much as you possibly can, which means the power-up itself isn't that special, the way they implemented it is. But what about enemies? Now, I've already kind of talked about them. Most enemies are designed where you jump on top of them to kill them, and that just fits in perfectly with the entire idea of the game. However, I also just like the variety in all the enemies. Some enemies you can jump on, some you can't, some are harder to jump on, and some of them have special abilities if you jump on them. I think they're designed pretty well. And one of the most infamous Mario villains is the Hammer Bro, which is also geniusly designed. To simplify why it's ingenious, he throws his hammer in an arc. You jump in an arc. That means if you're trying to jump on his head, you're in the perfect line of sight for his hammer, which means it's extremely difficult to attack him. Arlo made a video about dissecting the Hammer Bro a while back, so go watch that if you want to learn more. But that's just the basic enemies. What about the more complex ones, like boss fights? Now, of course, this being an old game, they couldn't really make a lot of complex boss fights, which means they only made one boss fight that's repeated 8 times. Of course, there is a difference in the environment, but not really the boss fight itself. The boss fight, however, is not that great. You just dodge his attacks, jump over him, hit the axe, and you win. It's not that good of a boss fight. I mean, at best, it gets more annoying as the game progresses, but it doesn't really get that much harder. Because if you just bring a mushroom with you, you can just immediately defeat him without having to dodge any of his attacks. So it's not really a good boss fight at all, but I mean, it serves its purpose. But what about secrets? I think most Mario games have handled secrets in a really good way. Super Mario Bros. Is no exception. First of all, there are multiple varieties of secrets. There are hidden warp zones, which take you to different worlds, which is insanely awesome. There are just hidden rooms and pipes filled with coins. And also there's the occasional hidden block. Also, there are power-ups occasionally hidden inside of brick blocks, which are kind of hidden because you don't know where they are, but also not hidden because you know exactly where the brick is. It's just you don't know if it has anything inside. Oh, also, besides the secrets you can interact with, there are some that are just Easter eggs. For instance, if you kill Bowser with a fire flower in any world except the last one, he ends up not being Bowser. This is an ingenious way of storytelling without telling. Small touches like this make good games great games. Not that this is a great game or anything, but you know. But now, time for extra. I couldn't think of too much extra to add because the game's not that complicated, but you know, I might as well go over something. I like the cool 1-up Easter egg, where if you jump off 8 enemies in succession, you get a 1-up. Of course, it's insanely difficult to do in normal gameplay unless you use some kind of glitch Easter egg. I don't know what this is, but it is a nice touch. But anyway, I think that's as much as I can possibly say about this game. It's not that complex, I just apparently had a lot to say. Oh, also, I think it'd be pretty nice if I ranked every game I reviewed, so just add this to the list since there's nothing to compare it to. So at the moment, I guess this is my favorite game, apparently, but it won't stay that way for long. I think this game was great for the time, and I think it did a lot of things ingeniously, but it also did a lot of things really badly. The power-ups were ingenious. The enemies were mostly well designed. It was neat. There was multiple level variety, I guess. There's not that much that's good with this game. The levels are pretty unexpired, and you get really bored of the game really quickly. Mario's jump is extremely annoying to control, especially compared to some of the more modern games. The Bowser boss fight is just not good at all. The game's not perfect, but it was pretty good for the time. And of course, because it led to such an amazing series, loads of people want to look back and talk about this game. But I do think we should keep in mind exactly when this game was made because it's not modern. But we should also compare it to some of the more recent games. Because even though a game was good for the time, we're not living in that time. We're living now. Why would I care how good a game was if I'm living now? I should care how a game is now. So I guess that's as much as I got to say. If you haven't played Super Mario Brothers, then you're lying. But no, seriously, thank you for watching. I don't know how many of these videos I'll make, but I don't really know what else to say. So signing off from Wyatt, I guess. Man, I need to come up with some kind of outro like, hey, what up, dogs? No, that's an intro. Like, adios to me. No, I don't want to be Mexican. What maybe I should go to my face when I sign off. Bye. What am I talking about? That's a terrible idea. I'll just, like, let the music fade out and that'll be it.